Let's dig up our potatoes. I wonder if we've got many. Oh, look at those. Oh, wow. They're big. Lovely potatoes. God, there's loads. Look at these. Oh, there's more. Cucumber. Hello everybody and welcome back to Talks from Uncle Trev. We've been looking at the life of Joseph and his brothers. Now last week, Pharaoh had had two dreams, and with God's help, Joseph had been able to tell Pharaoh what the dreams meant. And because of that, and because God was with Joseph, Pharaoh had promoted Joseph to the number 2 in Egypt. Apart from Pharaoh, Joseph was now the most important person in Egypt. Now, the interpretation of the dreams, the meaning of the dreams, were that there was going to be 7 really good years when the crops would grow really well, followed by 7 bad years. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. There were 7 bumper years of harvest. There was so much food. There was so much grain. Everyone had more than enough to eat. But Joseph was really wise. He stored up lots of the grain during the 7 good years, and he put it into special houses to keep it safe for later. So these are runner beans over here. Do you like runner beans? Oh, I love these runner beans. We're gonna have a lot this year. We've got a bumper crop. Picking some lovely juicy apples. I love corn on the cob. Look at these. Then, just as Joseph had said, there were 7 years of famine. During this time, nothing grew on the ground at all. They had no crops. There was nothing for the people of Egypt to eat. But it wasn't just the people of Egypt that didn't have anything to eat. The famine affected all the countries around Egypt as well. The people of Egypt would come to Joseph and they would pay money to him, and he would give them lots of crops and lots of grain in order that they had food to eat. Now, grain was also sold to other countries that lived around Egypt. Now, when Jacob, that's Joseph's father, when he heard that Egypt was selling grain, he said to his sons, "Get yourself down to Egypt quickly and buy some grain, or else we'll have no food to eat and we will all die." But Jacob wouldn't let the brothers take Benjamin. Benjamin was his youngest. And after losing Joseph, there was no way that Jacob was going to let Benjamin go. So the other 10 brothers set off to Egypt. When they arrived, they were told to report to the ruler who was in charge of all the food and grain and supplies. They did not know that the person that they were about to meet was the long-lost brother, Joseph. Joseph was shocked when he saw his 10 brothers. He recognized them straight away, but they didn't recognize him. He wasn't going to let on to them who he was. The 10 brothers bowed down to Joseph. Joseph started to remember the dreams he had when he was a little boy. how his brothers would one day all bow down to him. He asked them who they were and why they had come. They said that they'd come for food because they didn't have any in Canaan. But he said, no, you're spies. You've come here to spy out our land because you want to attack us. But they said, no, honestly, we haven't. We have a father called Jacob who's back home, and he's keeping our youngest one there safe because years ago we lost one of our brothers. We're telling you the truth. No, said Joseph. He was pretending, mind. No, he said, you are spies. You have come here. I don't trust you. And he made a deal with them. He put them in prison for 3 days. And then after 3 days, this is what he said. One of you will have to stay in prison, and the rest of you will go back home and bring back that little brother Benjamin you told me about. If you do that, then I'll know that you're not spies and that you're telling the truth. Now, after Joseph made this deal with them, the brothers started to talk amongst themselves, and they said things like, we're being punished because of what we did those many years ago to our brother Joseph. He pleaded for his life, but we wouldn't listen. We were so horrible to him, we're so nasty to him. That's why we're getting into all this trouble now. Now, they didn't realise that Joseph could actually hear them and that he could understand what they were saying. They thought that Joseph didn't understand their language, but he did. He knew every word they were saying. At one point, he was so sad that he turned away and started to cry. Anyway, they chose Simeon, or rather he chose Simeon, to stay behind in the prison. And the rest of them had to go back home to their father Jacob and tell them what had happened. So Simeon was taken off to prison, and he was put in a prison cell. Joseph gave orders to the servants to put lots of grain into the sacks, to fill them up to the brim. He also told the servants to put extra supplies into their sacks as well. And then he told his servants to put the silver that the brothers were going to use to pay for the grain and food back in as well. The brothers didn't know this. As they were travelling back to Egypt, they stopped one night in a camp. And while they were there, they opened up their sacks. They could see the grain, wow, and the extra supplies that they'd been given as well, wow. But then they saw the silver. Oh no, they said to one another, what has God done to us now? They were fearful, they were scared, because they thought, this man that we've been speaking to will think that we're thieves and that we have stolen all this silver. They didn't know what to do. Well, eventually they got home and they saw their father Jacob, and they told Jacob everything that had happened. They also told Jacob that if they didn't take Benjamin back with them, then poor Simeon would be left in the prison all alone. Jacob was so sad. You've taken Joseph away from me. Now you've taken Simeon away from me. There is no way that I'm going to give you Benjamin as well. So Jacob refused to give the 10 brothers Benjamin. The tomatoes are ripening up. Onions. Oh, look at that. French beans. So there are two really important lessons for us to learn today from the story. The first one's very, very simple. It is God who gives us our food. It's God who gives us a harvest. He is the one who sends the rain and the sun to make the crops grow. So whether it's tomatoes or corn or potatoes, we should be thanking God for giving them to us. So don't forget, before you have a meal, whether it's your breakfast or your lunch or your dinner or even your supper, don't forget to say thank you to God for sending us the food to eat. Now the second lesson that we can learn today is about Joseph. How did you expect Joseph to treat his brothers? Remember, these were the ones who wanted to kill him. These were the ones who sent him as a slave into Egypt. Now, Joseph is 37 years old when this story takes place. He was 17 when he was sent into Egypt. So it's 20 years since he's seen his brothers. If he had decided to send them into prison, or even have them executed, you could maybe even understand that because of how they had treated him. But he didn't. He was in a position of power. He was in a position of strength. He was the second most important person in all of Egypt. And yet, he treated his brothers pretty well. He gave them grain to go back to Canaan with. In fact, he gave them more probably than what you should have. He gave them extra supplies as well. He even gave them their silver back. So he treated them really, really well. He was really kind. He was strong and he was kind. And Joseph reminds us of someone else who was treated really badly, who was sinned against, and yet was very strong and very kind. And that's Jesus. Jesus had all power, and yet he was so kind as well. He fed 5,000 people when they were hungry. But he just doesn't feed us with physical food. The Bible says he gives us something which is even more important than that. He gives us something called spiritual food, something that really, really satisfies. So today, don't run to Egypt to see Joseph. Run to Jesus, who is strong and who is kind and who can really satisfy us. I hope you're all enjoying your summer holidays, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Don't forget to say thank you to God for all our wonderful food that we have every day.